Aw, hell yeah.
Alright!
It's time to review Sonic the Hedgehog CD, the third entry in my self-termed Mega Quadology. Despite being critically acclaimed upon release, Sonic CD has a more somewhat mixed reputation among Sonic fans. Some fans adore the game, while others don't really care for it. Sonic CD on the surface can be seen as an entirely different beast from the other games, but I disagree with this. Sonic CD is very much a part of these games, and I can't wait to get into the details. However, before we can do that, let's recap on what happened last time. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was an outstanding success, selling over 6 million copies. This was the title that made Sonic an household name, even selling the stinky Nintendo fans on a Genesis. Sonic 2 was huge. My opinion on the game still stands firm, with brilliantly designed levels, great music, and a fun setup. Sonic 2 is a game that I feel like any platformer fan should play. Some may say that Sonic 2 is overrated, but my answer to that is the game is popular for a reason. Sonic 2 has the bite to back up the bark the internet gives it.
Welcome back to the review series, you guys. I'm sorry this one took longer than usual, but I wanted to get everything down right, upgrade some of my gear, and really nail it this time. Sonic CD is not only an important game to the franchise, but me personally. But without further ado, let's get into some Sonic CD history.
Remember how the development of Sonic 2 took place in the US? Well, Naoto Oshima, my favorite and unappreciated Sonic godfather, stayed back in Japan. During this time, Sega was gearing up to launch their new add-on for the Genesis, the Sega CD.
Hey! You still don't have a Sega CD? Huh? What are you waiting for, Nintendo to make one? You have seen the games, right? Wrong answer, man. Show 'em!
In the early 90s, it was a trend for gaming companies to give their console a CD add-on. NEC did it with their PC Engine CD, and even Nintendo's gonna do this, but we all know how that turned out. Getting back on topic, Sega wanted a Sonic title to push the new add-on. Thinking their mascot would be able to sell more people on the Mega CD, Sonic was a perfect fit to show what the system was capable of. Oh boy, I feel like Sega thought the CD was a necessity. The entire point of the Genesis existing was to compete with the original NES, you know. Genesis does what Nintendo don't. The Genesis was marketed as this all-powerful machine, but once the Super Nintendo launched, it blew the specs of the Genesis out of the water in almost all aspects. For example, the SNES had something called Mode 7. Think of games like F-Zero, FF6, Super Mario Kart, and many others. This gives the illusion of a character being in a 3D space. The Genesis could not do this, so Sega thought they were in some hot water and felt like they needed to address the power gap. Enter the Mega CD. And before anyone says it, while the system is known for crappy FMV games, this style of game did take over. This was not what Sega wanted for the system. The Sega CD is a terribly misunderstood machine. Sega gave the system CD capabilities, which I know is obsolete now, but this was a huge deal. CDs were barely 5 years old. It was a new technology. The system allowed for CD level quality music, more memories for the games, FMVs, which gave the possibility for cutscenes, and most importantly, more horsepower so the Genesis could not only compete with the SNES, but top it in terms of capabilities. This allowed for the aforementioned Mode 7. The CD was meant to have the definitive ports of the 4th generation. Games like Mortal Kombat, Mickey Mania, Echo the Dolphin were best on the Sega CD, but unfortunately, this is not what the Sega CD would ultimately end up being. Since the console could do FMVs, most developers that were interested in the Sega CD would solely make FMVs for it. You know, Night Trap, Sewer Shark, all that crap.
Yeah, sorry for the Sega CD side tangent. I felt it was really important to go over the history and give it the true respect that it deserves, because often than not, the true history of it is not told online, and rightfully so, but carrying on.
Back on the Sonic side of things, originally talks about an enhanced port of Sonic 1 or Sonic 2 was considered, but later decided giving the system an original Sonic game would make the Mega CD more appealing. Sonic CD was in the first stages of existence. Who would be the director for this project though? Pretty much the only man for the job. Naoto Oshima was set to be director.
Not wanting to make the game too similar to the still in development Sonic 2, Oshima kept in contact with his friends in the US, trading notes, stuff like that.
Oshima's team wanted this project to focus more on exploration, making the world larger so it would add more replayability. This eventually led to the time travel mechanic. If you recall, where in the early stages of Sonic 2, it also had a time travel mechanic. Naito Oshima wanted to take this concept and turn it into something completely different. It's very important to note that the time travel that was going to be in Sonic 2 is nothing like the CD counterpart. The Sonic 2 time travel would have been very linear. Instead of having slightly different level designs for each stage, it would have been more like Zone 1 would be in one time period, while Zone 2 would take place in a completely different period of time, if that makes sense. Sonic CD's time travel, according to Oshima, had a bit of a Back to the Future twist on it. You see, Oshima loved the idea of Sonic's surroundings changing as he's running. He originally wanted to be instantaneous, however, it was not technologically possible on this hardware, needing a loading screen between each transition, so the iconic time warping scene was created, Sonic flying through stars circling him. Something I personally love looking at. The team also wanted to expand the world by adding new characters, one to be a protagonist like Sonic, and another to be a villain with Eggman. They hoped to create the new villain to be as iconic as the Doctor himself, and jumping the gun here, they most definitely did. But hey, let's start with our new friend, Amy Rose. The visual designer, Kazuyuki Hoshino, is responsible for the new Hedgehog's design. Amy was actually based on a pre-existing character from the Sonic the Hedgehog manga. Interesting. Amy was created as a spin on the current video game love interest. During this time, the main character was usually the one who was in love with a female character, you know, Mario and Peach, but Amy was created so she would be the one who was gaga over Sonic, while Sonic never really showed an ounce of interest back. It's such an overlooked detail, but I really appreciate this. Sonic Team was always thinking of fun ways to break the mold. Of course, Sonic still saves Amy, but it's more of a side goal rather than the full mission. Speaking of my own opinion of Amy, I love her. She was always one of my favorite Sonic characters. She's often called annoying, and yeah, she can be a bit excited sometimes, but I think Amy's a really cool character. In Adventure, she learned how to fight back and stick up for herself, contrary to what Sonic Team wants you to think today, but you know, anyway. Especially in a post-Forces world, Amy could be a badass character. The second character we were blessed with by Hoshino was Metal Sonic. I mean, wow. What can I say about Metal? I've said numerous times that the Sonic games had a nature versus technology theme, but this just embodies it. Metal Sonic was created to be an exact robotic Sonic counterpart, the robot versus the hedgehog fighting through their own worlds. I think this idea was perfected here. People may ask what is the difference between Metal Sonic and Mecha Sonic from Sonic 2? Well, first things first, Metal Sonic looks infinitely cooler than Mecha, like hands down. Mecha Sonic is clunky, while Metal Sonic is exactly as described, Sonic's robotic counterpart, more sleek, agile. Second, Metal Sonic was used more like a distraction before Sonic fought the Death Egg, versus Metal, who was created to be the better and superior version of their living counterpart. Metal would act on his own and even race Sonic. That's not to mention Sega marketed the hell out of Metal Sonic, even making him more of a threat than Eggman himself. So it's obvious to say that Metal instantly became a fan favorite. Metal Sonic would even star as the main villain of a later Sonic game, Sonic Heroes. Metal Sonic himself is a very interesting character to me. Assuming he's a mindless robot would be incorrect. Metal Sonic is depicted as having his own personality and acting on his own accord, and it would even be revealed later that Metal Sonic legitimately thinks he is the real Sonic, and Sonic is the one who's a copy. This can be seen in the race in Stardust Speedway. Not to mention, Metal Sonic is literally one of the coolest things of all time. I don't think there's a single soul out there who doesn't like Metal Sonic. Both of these characters gained immense popularity, and arguably surpassed the fame of their own game. I would say these two had just as big as an impact as Tails did, just in a different way. Unlike Sonic 2, Sonic CD was not constrained by a pressured holiday release, so it was considered, quote, more fun to develop than any former Sonic game, ultimately meaning that there's not nearly as much to cover as there was in Sonic 2. I would like to share this really funny image that was hung in the entrance of the staff room, which shows Sonic smoking a pack. I love how humorous the teams were during the making of these classic Sonic games. But yeah, in September of 1993, hey, 30th anniversary, Sonic CD released for the Mega CD and Sega CD. Yeah, as I said, there's really not a lot to talk about this time around in terms of development. Beta though? Maybe, but that's another video for another time. As I've said, Sonic 2 around this period kind of hogged all the attention, and maybe rightfully so, but that's enough of that. It's about time we dive right into Sonic CD, but there's an issue.
You still don't have a Sega CD?
You know me, I like to play the original version of the game first. I think the progression of a game and its remasters are very, very interesting. Unfortunately, with Sonic CD, this is very difficult. Despite the Sega CD not selling horribly. A Sega CD on the aftermarket is very expensive, and while I want one in the future, I can't really afford one right now. I was very lucky to grow up with the retro system I had, with like the Dreamcast, Saturn, and all the Sonic games I wanted. But the Sega CD kind of slipped my radar as a kid. So for now, let's look into other options. My life would be 10 times easier if CD was on the Mega Collection, but unfortunately, due to disc-based limitation and emulation issues, it had to be canned. You see, for a while, Mega CD games were somewhat hard to emulate due to the music. This is likely why CD wasn't on Sonic Jam either, due to the music taking up a lot of disk space. Sonic CD not being on Jam is a serious bummer. Getting the Jam treatment would have done so much for the game, but again, due to low disk space, CD was left out. Interestingly enough, Sonic CD wasn't even included on 2004's Sonic Mega Collection Plus released for the PS2 and original Xbox. Plus was created specifically for the other 6th gen systems, since the first was exclusive to the GameCube, plus included a buttload of new games. This would have been the perfect opportunity to include Sonic CD. They had more than enough room, but no. Instead, we got 24 Game Gear games. Fuck yeah! And Sonic 3D Blast? Really bad choice in my opinion. But no, in 2005, our prayers were finally answered with Sonic Gems Collection. Gems Collection is weird. Marketing as a collection of obscure Sonic titles, it was used for the compilation to host Sonic CD. And honestly, I always felt like Sonic CD was out of place here. I know why it's here, being the reason to own Gems, the killer app if you will. The other games on this collection include Sonic R, Sonic the Fighters, and 6 other Game Gear games. Great choices to be sure. I mean, the version of Sonic R here is the PC port, which added things like weather conditions in the game and a few other quality of life improvements that make the better way of playing it. But I don't know, Gems always looked kind of forced together and just an excuse to finally re-release Sonic CD. If it were up to me, I would have swapped the Game Gear stuff from Mega Collection Plus with Sonic CD, so all 4 games could finally be together. And to make Gems Collection more valuable to consumers, include a version of Knuckles Chaotix, which never got redone and to this day lives and dies on the 32X. And to top off the collection, include the Saturn version of Sonic 3D Blast. This way it's still true to what it's named after, actual gems. However, unfortunately, we can't change history, and this is the way we got Sonic CD, and I'm at least happy we got it at all. This could have been the way to introduce most fans to the game. But only released on GameCube and NA and PS2 only in Europe and Japan. It's almost like they wanted the game to fail. Releasing it on a console with a low install base compared to the competition in a region where the games sell the most is just stupidity. This right here is the main reason why I feel like Sonic CD should have been included in Plus. It just makes the most sense. This entire mess adds to my personal theory on why Sonic CD was considered a black sheep. And some of you may be confused on why I keep saying this, but let me clear some things up. Thanks to 2011 mobile remaster and Sonic Origins, Sonic CD is back to where it should be, but for a time, people wrote it off. Even in the Mania intro, there was no CD button. When asked about this, Tyson Hess and this absolute numbnut claimed that Sonic CD was its own thing.
Hey Tyson, we don't have Sonic CD on the elevator. They're probably going to ask us why. And I think the answer we came to,
It's like, it doesn't fit in the timeline canonically as far as I know. Right?
and I think with CD being like the whole like time travel and stuff like that, it's its own thing. It's the button on the other side of the elevator.
I think this statement is ridiculous considering CD introduced elements and characters that are still being used to this day. And Sonic Mania itself literally has CD levels in the game. It's obviously not true since these guys aren't really a good source of information. Just because something is not a part of your stupid nostalgia doesn't make it not true or part of a series. But we need to get back on topic because I can spend hours on this discussion.
With all of my complaining out of the way, I feel like Sonic Gems Collection is my best bet to play the original without resorting to emulation. And truth be told, I actually don't have it currently. I was lucky enough to own a lot of the cool rare games, but I didn't have everything. And thankfully, Gems Collection is not too expensive on eBay, so I'll pick it up.
3 days later.
Finally! Let's play some Sonic CD! Oh! gosh, this is based on the PC port?
Yeah, so to sum this up fast, in '96 they ported Sonic CD to PCs. While this would be cool, unfortunately this version of the game suffers from graphical errors and even worse collision issues. And at this point, everyone will just ask me, is it really worth it? And in my opinion, yes it is. I am committed to giving you guys the best reviews possible, and I feel playing the game on original hardware is the best way to do it. Seeing the progression of just one single game is something most people straight up ignore. Can I blame them? No, not at all. But this is a comprehensive documentary review. I want to do this authentically and there's no changing my mind on it. Am I an idiot? Most definitely. But you know how it is!
Yeah, I spent $300 on a Sega CD for the sole purpose of playing the original Sonic CD. But at least it came with the box.
Okay, so I'm putting this in post-production. I had no clue, but they actually released the Mega Drive Mini 2. Believe it or not, it actually has Sonic CD on it. Yeah, like the original Sonic CD, marking it the first time the authentic game has been released since '93. It's odd I didn't find out this sooner, but I guess you can't see everything. I'm just gonna try to ignore it. Let's get this bad boy unboxed and... yeah, that's cool. At least now I have an excuse to play my copy of Sonic CD, which I had for years. Am I coping? Yeah, but hey, what's done is done. And hey, why stop there? Since I'm so dead set on playing original hardware, I got this RGB HDMI upscaler, which cleanups the images so much. I mean, look at this. Yeah, I was never happy with the way my old footage looked. No doubt because it used composite, which is total trash, but for the sake of the video, I will not talk about why. Go watch some Adam Korlick if you want to know more. The TLDR for people who just want to gist, this is an idea on how the Genesis is supposed to look, while this is how it actually looks. Yeah, so much better, am I right?
This allows me to play on original hardware, while also getting the best looking footage possible. But, with all that BS out of the way, let's play Sonic the Goddamn Hedgehog Combat Disc!
Instead of the typical intros that were used in the last games, a new one was made specifically for the Sega CD, in all of its library actually. A little Sonic doing a finger wag with stars going over the Sega logo. Honestly, so far, this is my favorite intro, only because it's visually different. It may be common knowledge, but fun fact, the Sonic that was used in this intro was a clay figure that was digitized for the game. Pretty cool stuff, honestly. But wait, what the hell is this music? Ugh! Oh, okay, it's time to talk about the game's soundtrack. I purposely ignored it during the history section because I feel like it deserves its own entire segment. As everyone in their goldfish knows, Sonic CD has two soundtracks, one for Japan and Europe regions and the other for the US only. But the question is, why did they change the soundtrack? Well, basically the same reasons why they slightly altered Sonic's design and backstory to advertise to American audiences, which I can say how dumb it is now, but no, even for the time it caused a bit of a controversy. Spencer Nilsson, the man who composed the soundtrack himself, actually commented on it, saying,
I think the controversy surrounding the two versions of the game soundtrack were really blown out of proportion. Honestly, I've had hundreds of people tell me that they loved the score I wrote for that game, and I'm sure the Japanese version has tons of fans as well, so everybody wins in the end. As it should be. After all, it's only a game. I think critics were looking for reasons to bash the game, and so many critics are hardcore loyal fans, so they're not very objective. And they had all been playing the Japanese version for weeks or months before our version hit the streets, so it was like we replaced the music to Star Wars after the movie had been out for a while. From that perspective, I can't blame them. But to be honest, the game critics were always very kind to me and my collaborators, so a little bad press ain't the end of the world.
Look, I mean absolutely zero respect to Spencer, but I take a bit of an issue with his response. Saying things like, it's just a video game, is absurd. Just because something is a video game doesn't mean it's not subject to criticism.
Acting all high and mighty about the situation just because you compose it just makes yourself look like a douche. Of course, things like death threats and insulting him over such things is ridiculous. On that point, he is right, it's just a game, but this is not what that was. It's 100% fair criticism to bash on the fact that Sega even thought to replace it in the first place, and saying, there's people who loved my scores, again, makes you sound like a total douchebag. Not trying to rub salt on the wound, but Yeah, original opinion incoming. I'm not really thrilled about this soundtrack. Spencer only had a single month to come up with these pieces, which I have to admit is impressive. The issue with the NA soundtrack is that it's so generic. It sounds like it was made for some cancelled 80s movie, versus the Japanese soundtrack, which is amazing. I don't know where to begin. It can be atmospheric, fun, rocking, happy, energetic, weird. It all makes me want to dance. The Japanese soundtrack embodies classic Sonic in every sense of the character, which I can't say about the NA tracks. Here, let's give an example. In the first zone, Palm Tree Panic, the music is so happy, there's so much to it. It's grand. It feels like you are in the world of Sonic CD. And a little detail, but the yay that's cheered in the song, it throws you into the level and makes you feel like the zone's a real place. Versus this. It's just so dull. And no, before anyone says it, it's not nostalgia bias. I personally never let my nostalgia cloud my opinions. I mean, I grew up with Sonic 06 for Pete's sake. I actually played the game with the US soundtrack originally. This is just how I feel about it. I legitimately believe that most of these tracks were made and randomly assigned to each zone. Collision Chaos straight up sounds like elevator music, Quartz Quadrant is outright ruined, and don't get me started on Stardust Speedway. That was supposed to sound like this intense, crazy highway, but the NA soundtrack sounds like lobby music to a funeral. Again, I would be lying if I said I didn't at least like some of these tracks, because that's not true. Title Tempest is really catchy, and I actually prefer Wacky Workbench over the JP version. It may not fit the level that much, but it's still catchy. However, I do think the soundtrack goes a little overboard with the singing ladies. If you like the NA soundtrack, more power to you, but even you guys have to admit that the Japanese soundtrack is just a better choice and objectively fits the game better. This soundtrack is a fan favorite for a reason. There's nothing like it to this day. I know I already brought up Palm Tree Panic, but I love it so much. It's probably my favorite song in the entire game, for all the time zones. This is the first song in the franchise to make me feel an immense amount of nostalgia. You know, like how the annoying Nintendo fans are.
I've wanted it so fucking bad. I just can't do it. I can't take this shit no more, man.
I can't get enough of a little yay in the song. I'm sorry, it's just so cute. I imagine all the little animals shouting it as they say Sonic. It's just so happy. In the good future, when they get even more excited, it brings me so much joy. And the same applies to the past for a different reason. It's a bit more somber. It makes me reflect on my past. Whenever I think about previous events in my life, I usually play this track. I'm being dead serious. Something the soundtrack nails is making you feel emotion. The US OST is more like uninspired. Going back to Palm Tree Panic, the past in particular is extremely popular. Even my siblings listen to it, and I've even heard it when I was riding in an Uber once. I am not kidding. It's so popular, it gets sampled in a lot of music today actually, especially this one song by Machine Girl, which I'm not going to play for copyright reasons, but you just look it up, you'll see it. Speaking on samples, is it just me, or does some of the sound effects in this game sound weird? In fact, I've heard a lot of the sound bites in these songs are in fact samples from other songs. I know a lot about Sonic. And I mean, I know a lot about Sonic. I've been reading about him since childhood, and I already knew most of the things in the encyclopedia, but even I don't know a lot about this, but I think I knew someone who does.
My Little Pony, my little... Ah! Nick, it's rare you call on me.
Yeah, but I needed your weird, obscure knowledge about this. I'm sure you've been listening in this entire time, so tell the people what you know.
This is Parley Pinkie reporting live from the pocket dimension of white backgrounds and hijacking Nick's video. Sonic CD's soundtrack is just about as unique as the game itself, and could very well warrant its own video discussing it. From tidbits like the past and future stage songs being remixes made after the original present stage track, to the game's entire North American release having its own distinct musical identity. It really is a fascinating bit of Sonic trivia. But nothing about CD's experimental soundtrack interests me more than what it's comprised of. Lots of CD's most iconic drum beats, bass hits, and vocal notes are taken from sample CDs that were around during the time of its release. This isn't an unheard of practice or anything, it's quite common for songs to use samples from one another, but this is definitely the first time the Sonic series delved into doing so, at least to my knowledge. Some of these samples are so associated with Sonic CD in my head that listening to them separate is somewhat uncanny. Take a listen. The drum loop in the Bad Future of Quartz Quadrant is taken from this ambient noise CD, The Ecstatic Goldmine, by Polestar Magnetics. For a lot of these songs, you have to listen closely into the background to hear. Here's the drum beat. And now, here's Quartz Quadrant. Ever hear those robotic voices counting down in the invincibility theme? Well, they're taken from Zero G's Data File 2. Here's the sounds in high quality.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Also used in this CD are the vocals used in Stardust Speedway Zone. The iconic "hey, hey, hey, hey" clips that are practically inseparable from the song come from here too. On the topic of Stardust Speedway, here's a fun one. Listen to what sounds to be the hit noise that leads up to the chorus. Believe it or not, that sound is actually taken from Jocelyn Brown's Love's Gonna Get You. Brown is quite a well-known singer/musician, and her aforementioned song is famous for being sampled via her various voice clips throughout. You'd be surprised just how much of this soundtrack is taken from sample CDs, many of which are played on top of each other to really overwhelm the listener with electronic sound effect bliss. While it may boil down to a 2-second loop or one small voice clip, without these short samples, the CD soundtrack wouldn't be nearly as memorable as it is today. It really makes me appreciate all the little things in the music that come together to make one big song. Thanks for having me on, Nick. Not a lot of people talk about this topic, so it was an honor to be able to do it for this series.
No problem. You're always my go-to when I need some weird, obscure knowledge to know about. But, don't get used to it. Now, go on, plug your channel.
Hi, I'm partly Pinkie, and I like to talk about things that no one else does. Thus, my channel is focused on the early to mid-2000s era of My Little Pony, and if that topic interests you, I already have a couple of videos up, and I'm planning on making another as we speak. So, do you want to hear about how Core 7 ruined G3?
No!
Back to the title screen. You have a few options. Firstly, the new continue option. Yes, CD is the first game in the entire series to have a saving feature. Now, from my personal experience, the game is really short, so I'd never really make use of it in that aspect. In terms of the actual game itself, though, thank God! If you had to restart the game after a game over, I think most would hate Sonic CD. There's a time attack, which is very cool. Rarely do we get to see a new mode in the older games, but here we are. If you beat it in under 37 minutes, you unlock the DA Garden, which is where you can listen to the game's tracks, kinda like a CD player if you will. Not gonna lie though, Ugly Little Planet kinda jump scared me. I thought this piece of art was made for the PC port, but unfortunately not. Ugh, I'm sorry, it's just so fucking ugly. Ignoring Hideous Planet, the garden itself is super cool. You can control Ugly Planet with the D-pad. Make it grow or shrink. There's even a day-night cycle. Best part is the fact you can see a bunch of characters. Eggman, Metal Sonic, the Flickies, and even Tails makes another cameo. I never hear anyone talk about this, like the entire time I've been a Sonic fan, so I wanted to give it some spotlight. Also, one last thing, one of the tracks is labeled Little Planet. Listening to it is very intriguing to me. It's not used in the game at all itself, and I think that's a shame. The track is really good. I wonder what purpose it had. Current theory is that it's just a reward for unlocking the DA Garden. Odd. Last but not least, if you press down, 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 left and right, hold A and press start, you get to the proper sound test.
Yeah, let's just get this over with.
The sound test for Sonic CD is very infamous. You know what? No, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Everyone has had an experience with the fun is infinite image of Sonic CD. I did, my friends did, the entire internet did. The image shows Sonic with a creepy human-like face with the text, "Fun is infinite, Sega Enterprises." I think this image is so scary because of how mysterious it was. Super dark background, the little Sonics just staring into your soul, the music being haunting, in the US at least. Another tip for the US soundtrack for making it infinitely more creepy with the boss music. And lastly for me, the word Enterprise is being used, which I think can be used ominously in some contexts. Originally, I was going to give this the light of day for reasons I'll get into in a second, but I actually learned this might have been an anti-piracy measure for Sega, meaning if you pirated the game, this would show up. I find this so fascinating because this could have spawned so many stories. I know for a fact if I pirated Sonic CD and that showed up, my pants would have been browned. I remember being exposed to this image during my creepypasta phase as a kid, and it really freaked me out. But nowadays, I kind of have a hatred for this picture. Why? Well, the internet kind of took it and gave it a name, Majin Sonic, and I just hate this.
Sonic community, I love you people, but please, for the love of God, no, for the love of chaos, stop giving names to everything!
Sometimes things are more fun and creepy when it doesn't have an explanation or a freaky name, but I digress. Getting to do this on original hardware was a really cool experience for me. I even did it late at night for that spooky effect, but thankfully, that was the only nightmare-filled image in this entire game. Yeah, this is really, really strange, and I can't find any information on it, and that's how I like it. Sometimes not knowing is half the fun. These two images to me embody the whole we had more fun making this game than they did for Sonic 2, and I find that really funny. And that also applies to the next image, which is the world's fastest DJ, MC Sonic. I don't really have a lot to say about this one other than being objectively one of the best images to ever exist. The next one is pretty cute, saying "you're cool," the cute little Sonic. Lastly, we have an image of Tails with the text "see you next game." This image was created by Yasushi Yamaguchi, the character designer of Tails. Yamaguchi has stated that Sonic CD takes place before Sonic 2, and this image is more proof of that. Back on the title screen, depending on the version of the game you're playing, if you wait for the demo or simply start the game, you're treated to the animated anime-style opening produced by Toei and animated by Studio Junio. I have been waiting this entire video to talk about this intro. It's no unpopular opinion to say that this is the magnum opus of anything relating to Sonic the Hedgehog, and I wholeheartedly agree, 100%. I love literally everything about this intro. The animation is so fluid, Sonic's movements are so dynamic, the scope of it all is just amazing. Sonic fans worship it, and I do too. I have a huge vintage anime obsession. I love the way it looks, feels, sounds, and no, I'm not talking about the Twitter cringe aesthetic of what they think old anime is like. I mean actual old anime, hand-drawn. It all looks so right to me. The rainbows that Sonic creates when he runs over the water, the scenery of Never Lake, Sonic's shadow, the shot of Sonic gazing over Little Planet as it shows the grand scope of the world. It's perfection. I cannot think of a single thing that this intro can improve on. This is perfect, hands down to the last detail. The thing that this intro does the best is showing off Sonic's speed. The dust cloud, the rapid spinning on loops, Sonic building up speed and launching himself into the air effortlessly, jumping off rocks to keep up the momentum. They had no reason going this hard. It all gives me goosebumps. There is not a night that goes by that I wish we got a full anime using this style of animation. Yes, the OVA does exist and it does scratch the itch, but an entire series would have been so cool. Endless amount of potential there. Oh my gosh, the music. Oh my gosh, the music. Oh geez. You Can Do Anything fits this animation perfectly. The synchronization is so good. Oh my gosh, the part where Sonic breaks through the rock. Oh, it's so cool. This song right here, in my opinion, is the heart and soul of what makes classic Sonic what it is. It's wacky, catchy, cool, grand, weird. All the vibes of classic during this era were all refined and perfected in this one song, and the lyrics are so cool, which I can't say about Sonic Boom. Like the rest of the game, we also got a new intro song for the US, Sonic Boom, before by Sandy Chrisman, and if I'm being real, I do in fact enjoy this song. But for the intro of the game, it doesn't fit at all. Sonic Boom is a lot slower. It doesn't really synchronize that well with the animation. I almost felt like You Can Do Anything was made around the animation itself. The beginning where Sonic runs in the frame, the song truly begins, the part where Sonic breaks through the rock, it brings you into the experience. Not to mention, just comparing songs, Sonic Boom sounds more generic and uninspired. You Can Do Anything is so unique and unlike anything I've ever heard before, much like Sonic himself, such a unique identity. A while back, I really want to know an outsider's opinion, and instead of asking most people who review his games, I sent both to a buddy of mine who doesn't really play or enjoy many video games and asked him which one he liked more. And what he said really stuck out to me. He said while good in tone, Sonic Boom sounds like a generic song you would hear on the radio back in the 80s. And it's true. Again, if you enjoy this song, and I know many do, have at it. But I don't know, it doesn't really fit with the vibe of this game. If you haven't already, listen to the Crush 40 cover of the song. It's godly.
Okay, I need to stop myself here. I can talk about this intro for hours if you let me. Sometimes I just wake up in the morning and watch this intro over and over and again. I just restart it and watch it all over again. I've been doing it for years and I don't think I'll stop anytime soon. But without any further ado, let's get into the story.
Sonic CD was written to take place before the events of Sonic 1 and 2. There's no Tails or Super Sonic in this outing, and I just wanted to debunk the notion that Sonic Origins is what confirmed this. I won't say who, but there's some people online who pushed this misinformation. In 1993, there was an interview with the development team in an issue of Beat Mega Drive, where Yamaguchi himself confirms this and even teases the Tails cameo. Origins kind of reinstated it, that's all. And for some reason, fans still debate this. I find it so fascinating that a series as huge as Sonic can have answers and facts right in front of the fans' eyes, but they still ignore it. Why they do this,
I'll never know, but we gotta stop here. I can't get into another rant.
Every year, for a short time, Little Planet appears over Never Lake. Thanks to the mysterious time stones, time itself has been known to shift and change freely independent from the Earth itself. Eggman gets word of Little Planet, and with the time stones being a perfect fit for world domination, Eggman makes his way to Little Planet, in the process chaining it down and easily turning it into his newest fortress. He might have gotten the idea for the Death Egg from this. Shortly after this happened, Sonic was also curious to see Little Planet for himself, unaware of what the villainous doctor has done to the planet. Once Sonic arrives, he can feel that something is wrong, but it didn't take him long to see that Eggman was up to no good again. Sonic doesn't hesitate to jump on the chained planet, and makes his way towards Eggman. After getting a glimpse into the future by her tarot cards, Amy Rose, Sonic's self-proclaimed girlfriend, follows the hedgehog to Little Planet. This not really going in her favor because she ends up being captured by Metal Sonic, Eggman's latest invention. Sonic's goal now becomes more complicated. Not only does he have to save Little Planet, but also his biggest fan.
You know, I love the story of the Mega Dragon games. They're so compact and really fun to imagine in your head. Which, I can't say about the US story.
Oh, brother! First things first. Princess Sally? Really? So essentially, they changed Amy's name to Princess Sally, so they can have it in continuity between the games and Archie comics. Yeah, because kids totally would not question why Sally is suddenly a pink hedgehog. But whatever. Also, I think calling Amy a princess is kind of defeating the purpose of the character. She was supposed to be a spin on the current trend, not just another princess. It's just needless. Since it's based on the Sonic Bible, we have mentions of Mobius. And it contradicts the actual game because Amy is kidnapped before Sonic even steps on Little Planet. The line about Eggman bouncing off like a quote-unquote malicious rubber ball made me spit out my drink. Honestly, people, please don't pay attention to this. This is no longer relevant, and to newcomers it may confuse the snot out of you, so please only pay attention to the Japanese manuals. But alas, after the intro ends, we are placed right in the first level, Palm Tree Panic. And off the bat, the changes from being on the Sega CD are so noticeable. The higher color count, Sonic's new tripping animations, which are very charming by the way, and most notably, you can see the Mode 7 that the Sega CD adds. Right in Act 1, you go through this loop that changes the perspective of the level. This is the Mode 7 in action. Pretty nifty. The coolest addition to me is the spring animation for sure. When Sonic bounces from a spring, he does this really cool twirling thing, and sometimes I jump on the springs just so I can look at it. I know it's weird, but something about me is I always find the smallest details cool. Like sometimes I'll rewind an anime just to see a character do something I think is really neat, really minor or not. One of the most fascinating things about Sonic CD is that instead of animals, you say flowers. These are supposed to represent Little Planet's energy, and I think that's just the coolest thing. New additions go beyond just graphics and sound. We also get a brand new move for Sonic's moveset, the Super Peel Out. Hold up on the D-pad, and Sonic will run in place until he reaches top speed. Let go, and he will dart across the screen. I adore the Super Peel Out. It's one of my favorite moves in Sonic's arsenal, and for this game in particular, it works really well. It's not a push the one button. It still takes skill to keep the speed going, it's just a bit of a boost for when you need it. In addition, we are treated with this badass new sprite, where Sonic goes so fast his feet appear to look like an infinity symbol while running. I swear, Sonic can do literally anything, and he will look so goddamn cool doing it. This is the first time Sonic is seen running with his arms behind his back. The Naruto run, if you will. Alright guys, who here also did the Sonic run in middle school? Yeah, that's what I thought. The Peel Out isn't Sonic's only move this time around, because returning from Sonic 2 is the Spin Dash.
Have a good day!
Yeah, so the theory on why the Sonic CD Spin Dash is screwed up is while trading notes, Team Washima got the details on the Spin Dash wrong, and I totally believe it. It's not like they could have sent video samples or anything. The Spin Dash differs from Sonic 2 because instead of mashing buttons to rev it up, you have to wait until it fully charges, or else you won't be able to proceed forward. This kinda stinks, but honestly within the context, I really don't mind the CD Spin Dash. It's not the end of the world, and I've always had my headcanon for why it is the way it is. Please don't take what I'm about to say as actual canon. But as a kid, I figured since Sonic CD takes place before Sonic 2, the CD version of the ability was like Sonic trying to learn the Spin Dash. I know, it's stupid, but it makes sense. Look, Sonic 1 can't use a Spin Dash. Sonic CD, imperfect Spin Dash. Sonic 2, perfect Spin Dash. It's little kid logic, but it works for me, so it's my headcanon. A smaller addition that really boosts CD's unique identity is that Sonic talks? He he actually has a voice. Voiced by Masato Nishimura. This is the first time in the games he's done so, and I can't get enough of it. Okay, well, he doesn't speak entire sentences or anything, but he definitely has a voice. It's just so charming. Later iterations of Sonic would have him saying English words with a Japanese accent, but it all started here. Classic Sonic was always depicted talking in other media, so naturally with the upgrade to the Sega CD, they can bring into the games. There are only a few lines, so I'll go ahead and play them right now.
Yes! Yeah! Alright! I'm out of here!
One of them actually goes unused. When Sonic says, alright, I theorize it would have been used for when he gets one of the time stones, but that's just speculation. And even then, I have no idea why it was cut. My number one favorite part of Sonic talking is the time limit. You see, if you go AFK for longer than 3 minutes, Sonic will literally get too bored and leave, saying, I'm out of here. This adds so much charm to Sonic's character. Saying Sonic was gaming's most expressive character back in the day would have been an understatement. I remember the first time I experienced this. My friend told me he put the controller down for only a minute and Sonic talked and jumped off the screen. Of course, I thought he was lying out of his ass. Until I actually tried it. It kinda scared me at first. But not too long after, I was making everyone wait 3 full minutes just for Sonic to say a singular line and jump away. This, my friends, was my childhood in its prime. It's no secret that the sprite that Sonic uses in the game is the same from the first one. While I'm not thrilled with the shade of blue used, it's whatever. It's not the end of the world. Sonic 1 in general was used as the base of this game. Think of Sonic CD as the ideas of Sonic 1 continued. Every zone has 3 acts, and they work exactly the same. First 2 end of the signpost, and the third basically being a mini-hub for the boss. Even the special stages are accessed exactly the same as the first game, gathering 50 rings by the end of the level. I can live with this. I do prefer Sonic 2's way of handling zones. However, I can see the team thinking nothing was conceptually wrong with Sonic 1's layout, and I can't really disagree. It just takes a minute to adjust back to the way things were. Kazuyuki Yoshino, the art director, was even tasked to base the majority of the levels on Sonic 1, Palm Tree Panic being Green Hill Zone, Tidal Tempest, Labyrinth, etc. This led some fans to think of CD as a, quote, Sonic 1 remix, which, ugh. Calling Sonic CD a Sonic 1 remix is such a gross oversimplification. While yes, some of the zones are indeed based on previous levels, can you seriously look me dead in the face and tell me they're all the same? Hoshino wanted to make these stages stand out as much as they could, and I think he accomplished this. Aside from the fact that grass is green, Palm Tree Panic is nothing like Green Hill Zone. If anything, Emerald Hill is more in common with Green Hill. Are we seriously going to compare Starlight Zone and Stardust Speedway Zone? Really? Sure, both stages take place at night and so happen to be in cities, but that's the thing. Starlight, to me anyway, is like a city under construction versus a literal hectic highway. Also, the color palettes are not even comparable. Quartz Quadrant is straight up an original set piece. Jumping the gun here, Quartz Quadrant is my absolute favorite stage in the entire game. The purple background, the quartz hanging from the top of the stage to the ones in the foreground, when the crystals themselves change colors, the waterfall when you exit the cave, it's all so gorgeous. I love the sort of quartz mine aesthetic the stage owns. I think that distinctive Sonic CD design works best here. The colors are used in a way that's not overload. It all works. For the time, this would have had me blown away. I cannot fathom how people can actually call this a rehash. You can make a case for Tidal Tempest being Labyrinth, sure, but I would argue that Tidal Tempest sticks out with its level design and aesthetics, and that's the way it should be. If you have to base the new things on the old things, this is how it should be done, especially in this new era we live in. Recycled zones are nothing new, and in my opinion, as long as the stage itself sticks out in terms of level design, I don't really mind stuff being rehashed. Like Sonic Mania, for example. Sure, I wish we got completely new levels, but the reused zones always felt completely new to me, so I never really cared. Even so, this is not that. CD zones all have their own unique identity, and until I started to read about these games, I had no idea about the connection to Sonic 1. The level design for these zones have more of a vertical approach, some more than others. However, as you play along, the game subtly encourages you to explore. This may confuse new time players, but as stated early in the video, Sonic CD introduces a time travel mechanic. Oh boy, here we go. I've decided to play this game over 3 times for this review, multiple times for each path. Not everyone is going to want to get the best ending, so I wanted to experience the game in all aspects, so I could judge them respectfully. The length of your playthrough of Sonic CD can alter drastically depending on what path you go through. Let me explain. Each stage has 4 different variants: past, present, good future, and bad future. The past usually has a lot of life, nature-like visuals, and very calm music. The present is neutral. The essence of the past remains, but with a modern twist. Signs of things that can go wrong, but can be maintained. Bad future is depressing. It's dark, not a single animal in sight, badniks are everywhere, and the music is moody. It really makes you feel as if you screwed up. Last but not least, the good future. A visual paradise, animals all around, little to no hazards, and full of cheery music. The goal of Sonic CD on the surface is no different from previous titles. However, this time around, if you want the good ending, you either have to get the time stones, or travel back to the past and find the robot generators. What are the robot generators? Well, Eggman placed robot generators in the past so it would be easy to take over the future. They generate robots that will overrun and take over Little Planet. To good future a zone, you have to destroy the machines to successfully stop the production of badniks. One in the first 2 acts of a zone, take down both, and you have made a good future in that zone. And if you make your way into the future in a zone, it'll be the good timeline. In Act 3 will always start in the future timeline depending if you hunted on generators or not. Even if you got one of the 2 generators, it'll still end up being the bad ending, so it's really important to get both. There are also Metal Sonic holograms hidden in the past as well. These don't count towards the good ending, but taking them out will let the animals run around, which is cute. Just a small side note, I love how if you good future an act, it'll say, Sonic made a good future in Act 2. I don't know, just another reason why to enjoy the small details. How do you access time travel in general? Spread throughout the stages are these signposts that are either labeled past or future. After you go through one, you have to run fast and keep the momentum for a short while, and if you're successful, you go time travel. I feel like I have to address the collision detection, which even I have to admit can be sometimes a bit wonky, but in the original, it's not that bad at all, really. Pretty overblown issue in my opinion. I think most people are referring to the PC port, which introduces a lot of problems. While we're on the topic of version differences, when I first played the original on the Sega CD, I was shocked at how easy it was to warp, and that's because the time needed to gain speed is very low, compared to the 2011 remaster where they made it longer. This may seem pointless, but it changes a lot in that version, but we will talk about that when the time comes. Nevertheless, time travel, no matter the version you play, mechanically remains the same. I love the time travel of Sonic CD. For 1993, this was unheard of. Having a level change almost instantly, changing the look and feel, is just awesome, ambitious, and it's what makes me come back to the game over and over again. Making your way back to the past itself can vary in terms of difficulty. Palm Tree Panic, Collision Chaos, and Quartz Quadrant are very simple. These stages have areas that are specifically designed for easy time travel. Palm Tree Panic in particular, since it's the first stage, it really feels like a playground to mess around with and get used to the changes. The first act has a borderline scripted section where you can time travel. Not a lot of people talk about it. I truly believe this stage has brilliant game design. It makes first-time players invested in making a good future. My personal favorite starting stage in any 2D Sonic game for sure. Tidal Tempest can be somewhat tricky depending if you're familiar with the stage's layout. However, Act 2 basically gives it to you. Wacky Workbench Act 1 is absolute hell in my opinion. Having me crushed is a really odd decision. Like, typically in Sonic games you want to avoid being crushed, which I know that may be the entire point, but still, really odd choice. I spent so long on this during my first ever playthrough. Act 2 was really easy, however. Some people really complain about Act 2, but I always thought it was super simple. I believe Stardust Speedway can be a little too easy, honestly. Even when I'm playing through normally, I manage to travel back. Lastly, Metallic Madness. Getting to the past is not the issue. It's the fact that the first act is literally unbeatable in the past. I got a time over trying to beat the stage this way, so I ended up resetting the game. Overall, time traveling is fairly simple. The stages can be low on pass posts, but in general, when you find one, it's almost never too hard to keep the pace going into warp. And on the off chance you do blow it, just pause the game and press the C button. This will reset the stage from the beginning. And I found this out by complete accident too, and is something I use continuously throughout the countless playthroughs I recorded for this video. Giving the player a reset button on a 4th generation game is crazy to me. They really thought of everything. Keep in mind, this is only for the original Sega CD version. I may enjoy it, but I know others might not. Some may just want a normal Sonic game, but that's the brilliance of Sonic CD, because they give you options. Does the idea of time travel and exploration turn you off? Well, how about collecting the time stones instead? The time stones are the answer for those who just want a traditional Sonic experience. Obtain the same way as a Chaos Emerald, gathering 50 rings and enter a special ring, clearing all special stages, and once you collect all the time stones, every good future in the game will automatically be good futured. The fact they thought this out and gave the player other ways to beat the game is such a pro player decision. Sonic CD gives you options, and that's the thing I adore about it the most. Don't care for exploring and want to play it like a normal Sonic title? You got it. Do you also want to get the good ending and save Little Planet? You got that too. Hell, do you want to get both the time stones and hunt down the generators? Not sure why you would, but that's also an option. I did that. Mostly just to see Palm Tree Panic's good future. I can get enough of that music. Speaking of the game personally, the fact I can choose what kind of game I want to play with CD makes it downright one of the most replayable games in the franchise. It always feels fresh. It's almost like Sonic CD is personalized. I can go to any time period I want to. I can visit the great past of Collision Chaos, explore the vast waters of Tidal Tempest, and jam my way through Stardust Speedway. Some may find me crazy for this, but I actually greatly prefer Sonic CD over Sonic 2. While the stage layouts can be somewhat special, I always get a kick out of playing them, no matter what kind of playthrough I'm aiming for. I think they achieved almost everything perfectly, and for the time, this blew people away. Sonic CD is truly something special. Some of you are undoubtedly questioning my opinion. Surely the stages that were built with exploration in mind might be a bit awkward to play through when not going for time travel. And guys, I truly think that, for the most part, that's not the case. Starting with the first stage, Palm Tree Panic absolutely nails it. It's laid out like a normal Sonic game, but will have little obstacles and platforms that will encourage exploration, but can be totally ignored. As I said earlier, Palm Tree Panic acts as a crash course on how to play Sonic CD, therefore I believe it's beautifully designed. One of the best examples of CD's level design. Collision Chaos is the first where I can see people claiming it has whack level design, but if you ask me, this zone is no different from Casino Night, Spring Yard, and the next game's Carnival Night. The entire premise of the stage is chaos. Guys, it's in the name, Collision Chaos. Now of course, just because something is the entire point of what it should be, doesn't automatically make it good, but I'd say Collision Chaos is the best out of these sort of theme stages. Ironically, for me, it's the one that's the least annoying to get through. Tidal Tempest is Labyrinth done right. The in and out of water segments are really well balanced, air bubbles are plentiful, and I actually really enjoy going through this stage. The music makes me want to swim, I adore the stage's colors, Bannock designs, and obstacles. To me, Tidal Tempest is like a mirroring of Sonic 1's Labyrinth and Sonic 2's Aquatic Ruin. This is just normal Sonic level design. Quartz Quadrant, again, is my favorite stage in Sonic CD, and his level design is what I call the best in the entire game. It feels super satisfying to play either way. Going through it like a typical Sonic game is super fun. The obstacles don't feel like it's trying to make you go upward, and when I do go on the upper paths, it feels like the same as it does in Sonic 2. It seems this stage was designed to go fast no matter what portion of the level you're on, and I really appreciate that. Alright, so everything I've been saying does not apply to Wacky Workbench. I can concede to this stage. Whenever someone talks about how crazy and wonky Sonic CD's level design is, they are most definitely talking about Wacky Workbench. Truth be told, even I straight up don't like this stage at all. Both exploring and trying to traverse through the stage is super annoying. The floor is like a giant spring, and you will be bouncing up and down, getting launched into areas you can't progress through. It's not good. I can see what they're trying to do here, but this is just bad game design. Personally speaking, I can forgive Wacky Workbench because there's bad parts of every single game I love. For example, Mario 64, a game I adore. I can't stand most of the final floor, some of the most frustrating levels out of any video game, but I still love the game to pieces. The other aspects are so good that I can easily forgive some of the more questionable design elements. Stardust Speedway is pure bliss no matter what ending you're going for. It's chaos, it's true to the name. It's a crazy highway. You have to make quick decisions, and you'll go speeds you never thought possible in a Sonic game before. Stardust Speedway in many ways defines classic Sonic to me. The colors clash in the most perfect way possible, and in the JP soundtrack, it can really immerse you into the stage. It's like I'm really there, speeding my way through the level. Metallic Madness is your typical Sonic final zone. So far, this is my favorite out of these types of levels. The level design can be really tight, feeling like a gauntlet specifically designed to stop Sonic. I love the little leg type things that you can jump on. The looping maze in Act 2 is really fun for me to go through, and who doesn't love Little Sonic? Even if Sonic CD's levels can be a bit quirky, overall I think they did a fantastic job at satisfying old fans, and made new ones through the time travel mechanic. Sure, some of the acts can be pretty short all things considered, but I would argue it's no different from the first two titles. A lot of you have probably noticed that up until now, I haven't really mentioned the bosses for the game. Because yes, at the end of every third act, there's a boss. Typical Sonic stuff. However, in every one of the episodes so far, I have struggled to find a spot to fit them in. Because the bosses in the original Sonic games, at least for Sonic 1 through CD, are pathetic. Takes little to no skill to beat, even for a newcomer. CD is no exception, dare I say the prime example. Most of the bosses have a 3-hit limit, which is crazy to me. The Palm Tree Panic boss is just sad. But if there's one thing that I can commend Sonic CD on, is the fact they tried to do something new with the bosses. After the first zone, each of them tried to do their own thing. Tidal Tempest is unique because you have to inhale every air bubble before being able to get the last hit on Eggman. Wacky Workbench is weird. You have to keep proceeding upward to land a blow on Eggman, and the blocks just kind of jump upward. What a different boss. Quartz Quadrant has a running in place in the conveyor belt while playing the waiting game as the continuous grinding against the belt wears down Eggman's machine. Really cool concept for a boss. It's just a bit too easy. The only good boss here is the race against Metal Sonic and Stardust Speedway. This defines Sonic CD. In the battle between Sonic and his metallic counterpart, you have to keep on your toes because Eggman is not far behind. equipped with a beam that can instantly kill Sonic beyond contact. Not to mention, no matter if you got the good future, the bad future song will be playing during the boss fight, making it Metal Sonic's canon theme in my mind. This race is intense, fun, and can be tricky sometimes. After you prove who's the real Sonic, you save Amy. I always found it charming how she latches onto Sonic right after being saved. The final boss is the worst out of the entire Mega Quadology. From what I can gather, I don't think it's even possible to damage Eggman without hitting the blades on his Eggmobile. Maybe I'm just impatient, but I always jump, lose rings, and use my invincibility frames to give them the first hit. After that, it's fairly simple. Just be careful and it's over before you know it. For a final boss, it's just so lame, but the music and atmosphere say otherwise. The track Final Showdown does an amazing job at setting a sinister mood. The fight itself can be very lackluster, but it makes you feel like it's a big deal. But before you know it, you'll defeat Eggman and the game is over. Before wrapping up, I realized I somehow forgot to mention the special stages. I went over how to get to them, but what exactly awaits you inside of the returning big spinning rings? Epilepsy apparently. Unlike Sonic 1's block mazes or 2's half pipes, CD puts you into a pseudo 3D plane and has you maneuvering Sonic around as you try to destroy the UFOs. This is definitely the best showcase of the Sega CD's power. It uses that lovely Mode 7 that was all the rage in the 90s apparently. Back on the UFOs though, you need to take them all down before the time limit hits 0. When you destroy one, you're rewarded with either rings or a speed boost. There's also traps all around, bumpers guarding the arena, and water, whereas if you touch it, it drains your time by 10 seconds. The name of the game is preemptively getting Sonic lined up with the set path of all the UFOs, then jumping at the right time to destroy one. Do this enough times, and you're rewarded with the time stone. How do I feel about these stages? Personally, they're mega cool. A bit awkward to play? Yeah, for sure. It can be difficult to hit the UFO at times. They move in a set path, so sometimes it seems like they're avoiding you while trying to jump. No doubt this is because Mode 7 gives the illusion of being in 3D, so it messes with your mind. Even with the flaws, I really get a kick out of these special stages. I prefer them over the half pipe, and most definitely the block mazes. Only because if anything, I love the way they look. The backgrounds fascinate me to no end. I want to know the stories behind them, where they are, and if they're even real. I'll wrap this up by saying, I appreciate the Sonic CD special stages for being something completely different. Doing something unique while also staying true to the formula is how you win me over. And these special stages play a big part in making Sonic CD what it is, but I digress. With the chain that held Little Planet down being destroyed, Sonic successfully saves the world from Eggman's hands. Watching in awe as Little Planet vanishes into the sky, Sonic sets out on his next adventure, concluding the story of Sonic CD. The events I just described is the good ending of the game. The bad ending has Eggman getting away carrying a time stone. Sonic takes a rock, revs up, and launches the rock towards Eggman. I love both to death, and as much as I love watching Sonic do cool things, I adore the way he looks up at the sky as the stars fall down on him. It's so beautiful and gives me goosebumps. I especially love the part where he stops gazing at the sky and does the pose. Just the pose. It's so badass, and as a lot of people say, this is peak Sonic. Sonic only got this cool again a handful of times. I literally cannot spend more time on this, but I can't help it. During the credits, you get to see the rest of the animation that was made for the game, and it's so good! Complementing this is the song Cosmic Eternity, and it works so well for it. I love it as much as I love Sonic Warrior. It fits the animation so well, from Sonic dodging the Moss Queen Palm Tree Panic, to Sonic avoiding Kama Kama's sickles. Oh my gosh, the part in Quartz Quadrant where he gets confused by Saucery's reflection has to be one of my favorite parts. I adore how he runs around the Bannock until he straight up dies of dizziness. The way Sonic effortlessly jumps from Bannock to Bannock and takes them apart like it's nothing, all while mocking them, is just so peak. But the best part is the Metal Sonic race. This only lasts for a few seconds, but it's a glorious 5 seconds. I love everything about this. The choreography is stellar. It captures Sonic's speed so well. It's spectacular. I use the term embodies a lot in this video, but this is the essence of Sonic the Hedgehog. Nothing short of amazing. High-speed thrills, cool looks, and catchy music. That's what it's all about. That, my friends, is Sonic the Hedgehog CD. To me, this entry is my second favorite out of the 4. I prefer Sonic CD to Sonic 2. I know, this is a huge, ginormous claim, but that's just how I feel. The time travel mechanic is what makes this game truly special and was beautifully integrated in the gameplay. It makes it all fresh and exciting. The level design achieved in giving fans what they were looking for, while also introducing so much new. I love the world, the atmosphere, the music. It really feels like I'm saving a planet from doom. The amount of replay value this game has is incredible. As a person who likes all the types of gameplay of Sonic CD has to offer, every playthrough feels like its own. And let's just say, the amount of times I fully beat Sonic CD exceeds 30, and that's lowballing it. However, no matter how much I adore this game and will continue to meat-write it, I can totally see why someone wouldn't enjoy it. The level design can indeed sometimes be wonky in certain levels. Being the point or not doesn't change the fact that some people won't dig it at all, and that's fine. Remember guys, the point of my series is to spark discussion. Unless people try to spread misinformation, I welcome all opinions, which is exactly why I want every single one of you watching this video to go out and play this game. Form your own opinion on it, and tell me or a friend how it was. Don't let some guy online, me, someone else, or otherwise tell you how you should feel about something. Even if you don't like it, having your own perspective on a game is better than regurgitating someone else's opinion. There's been times where I was sure I was going to hate a game, but end up loving it because I decided to play it for myself. And to those out there who try to say this game is objectively bad, just because you don't like something doesn't make it bad. It just might not be for you. There are plenty of games I know that are objectively amazing that I just don't like at all. Example, I'm not thrilled on Super Mario Galaxy 2. That's another video for another day, but I can still see that it's a masterpiece. It's just not a game for me. Some people may say Sonic CD is too easy, and I do agree on the fact that it is a very easy game. I could beat it as a kid with no issues, but dare I say, I think this plays into its benefit. That friend I mentioned earlier in this review, who doesn't really like or play video games that much, he actually bought the game, played through its entirety, and loved it. And I'm talking the same dude who couldn't get past Angel Island Zone in Sonic 3.
Don't.
All part of the plan.
Sonic CD is a very beginner-friendly title in the series. If you're watching this video and never played a Sonic title before, start with this one. It's easy to play, but difficult to master. Play through the normal ending a few times, and then attempt to hunt down the robot generators. I'm sure you get a kick out of it. Upon release, Sonic CD was critically acclaimed, receiving nearing perfect scores. Sonic CD was the must-have game for the add-on. In fact, Sonic CD was the best-selling Sega CD game of all time, totaling over 1.5 million copies, which for a game on an add-on is pretty damn good. Undoubtedly the best game on the system, Sonic CD's legacy will forever be strong in the community. It may have been seen as a black sheep for a few years there, but it quickly came back to the limelight, and to this day is one of Sonic's best adventures.
Man, I love this game. It's the first game out of the series that I truly feel passionate about. A burning love, if you will. I hope hearing the opinion of a diehard, obsessive Sonic fan was really interesting for you guys out there. And the best part is, we're not done.
This would be the part where I talk about the Sonic Jam port, but as stated before, sadly Sonic CD is not present on this collection due to space limitations.
But fear not, there's a ROM hack out there called Sonic CD++. I think it's really cool and it's something everyone should know about.
Firstly, this is something that any of you that owns a Sega CD can burn to a CD and play. You see, the Sega CD doesn't have any sort of copy protection, so it can read burn games with no issue. The first change to this hack is the Japanese soundtrack, even on US hardware. And just between me and you guys, I actually modded and burned my own copy of Sonic CD that has the BIOS of the NA copy, but with the JP soundtrack. But that's neither here nor there. The biggest change was that they actually added in the Sonic 2 Spin Dash, and it functions exactly like it was in that game. This is so cool. This in itself is why I wanted to cover this for this video. It's just crazy that fans fixed one of the biggest mistakes in my opinion. Other changes include an increased ground speed, which from what I was reading, more speed was added in because they thought Sonic moved too slow in the original, which I find very odd, considering Sonic's ground speed in the original is the fastest so far, but nevertheless, having more speed is very fun. If you thought the acts were too short before, oh boy, you clearly have not played Sonic CD++. Having this much speed at your feet breaks the game. Lastly, they added in the homing attack from Adventure onward, and to be real, I actually kinda disliked this. The only reason why the homing attack was added in the first place was out of necessity. In 2D, more specifically, games that weren't designed for it, it just doesn't work that well for me. It breaks the flow. But for those who are fans of the homing attack, I can see this being a good thing.
Yeah, that's really all I have to say about Sonic CD++. It's a really fun hack, and there's not a lot of people that talk about it out there, so I figured I'll give it some coverage. But let's get to what you guys were really here for. The mobile port and the Origins remaster. And yes, I did pick up a copy of Origins Plus, like I said, in the hopes I would fix some of my issues. Did it?
Christian Whitehead, who also goes by Taxman, was a huge Sonic fan. Being well known for the fan game Retro Sonic, he created an engine, the Retro Engine, that could perfectly replicate the physics of the Genesis Sonic games. In 2009, he went to Sega and pitched a re-release of Sonic CD for iPhones. One thing led to another, and in 2011 we got the Christian Whitehead version of Sonic the Hedgehog CD. Not a port nor emulated ROM, Whitehead recreated the game from the ground up using his engine. This allowed for various quality of life improvements such as a 16:9 aspect ratio, 60 frames per second gameplay, and so much more. And of course, this led to Taxman teaming up with Stealth, another big figure in the community, in 2013, released from the ground up remasters of Sonic 1 and 2, and the rest is history. I was 9 when Sonic CD 2011 came out, and CD was the title that always eluded me. Everyone had that one game in their favorite franchise that always seemed out of their reach. Sonic CD was mine. I had a Genesis with Sonic 1 through 3K on it, a Dreamcast, which was my favorite, and I soon got a Saturn for Christmas of 2013. I loved the retro stuff. It was all I could talk about when I was younger. I really wanted a Sega CD, but even at the time, it was pretty expensive. I'm so grateful I had a mom who went out of her way to get the older stuff for me, but I don't think she was very keen on buying this expensive add-on just for one singular game. So I just had to hope that one day I would come across it. I remember one day at my elementary school, my childhood friend was telling me he was playing Sonic CD, and I, of course, asked him how he did so, telling me it just came out on the PlayStation 3. I rushed home after school that day, and lo and behold, Sonic CD was there, calling my name. I played it, and loved it, as I loved every single Sonic game I played as a kid, good or bad. Before I made a case on why I would still play the originals over the mobile remasters, it's different this time though. Sonic CD 2011 is the best way to play the game. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Sonic CD was the game that needed the remake the most. And while I still stand by the fact that the collision detection in the original is not as bad as others made it out to be, I can't deny that it's a bit wonky, because it is. Sonic CD 2011 completely blows it out of the water. Playing them back to back is night and day. It flows better, feels better, sounds better, and manages to give us something that completely changes everything. The Sonic 2 Spin Dash. Oh yeah! It's here in all of its official glory. It feels so good to use here. It doesn't break the game like it did for Sonic 1. In fact, I still use the Super Peel-Out more often, only because it was designed for the game. I have to say, the thing I love most is that CD 2011 is so faithful to the original. In the settings, you can toggle which version of the Spin Dash you want to use, and even which version of the soundtrack you want to listen to. It's so small, but I really appreciate the little things because clearly this was done for purists of the OG. No one else would have cared about this. Again, this was made for fans, and it clearly shows. Furthermore, because they added Tails as a playable character, this was so cool, and Tails works very well for Sonic CD. Being able to fly plays into the vertical design of the levels, thus it's a lot easier to find the robot generators this way. Special stages, oh my gosh, the special stages! Like for Sonic 2, this is one of the biggest upgrades. The original was a bit choppy, but having a silky smooth 60 FPS is just so stellar. It feels so amazing to play. Overall, I would say it makes them much easier than the OG, although I still notice the UFOs will sidestep out of the way at times. Now, the only real issue I have with this version of the game is the opening animation. For some ungodly reason, they cropped it to fit within the 16:9 aspect ratio. Literally why? Cropping any media that uses a 4:3 resolution looks awful. I hate when shows do this. In fact, let me release some autistic anger when I say fuck you, Funimation! But it's jarring here because everything else was crafted with love. This may have been an oversight, but it just blows. Adding salt to the wound, both You Can Do Anything and Cosmic Eternity were replaced by instrumentals. This I can't get too pressed on because apparently it was due to licensing. It kinda hurts hearing the epic build-up only be left with nothing. It's funny because as a kid, I really liked Sonic Boom, but preferred everything else in the Japanese soundtrack. So I would start the game with the US soundtrack, listen to Boom, exit the game the moment Palm Tree Panic started, and switch back to the JP. In the grand scheme of things, it's very small and does not at all affect the gameplay of the game itself, but it does bother me enough to actually almost want to skip the intro, which, by the way, is illegal in 13 different countries. Sonic CD 2011 did so much for this game. It took what was once known as a black sheep and put it right back into the spotlight as the fourth game of this quadology, as it always should have been. For that, I thank you, Sir Whitehead. You will always be known as one of the Sony gods.
And lastly, we have Sonic Origins. Oh,
I do not have the energy to complain about Origins for another 15 minutes. Because I've done that twice now. If you want to hear my thoughts about Origins as a whole, watch those videos. But if you haven't already, remember how I said I would purchase Sonic Origins Plus with the hopes that it would fix the main issues of the games, and give it a fair chance? Well, did they do that? Haha, nope! But instead, they did give us 20 Game Gear games.
Game Gear games? Holy shit! Game Gear games! Wow!
The absolute worst sin of this is the fact they aren't even the Master System ports, so we have to play them with the gross screen crunch. No. No thank you. You still can't switch coins with lives, the save selection screen is still as clunky as ever, and on top of it all, glitches, both in audio and gameplay, are still as abundant as ever. Speaking on some of the negatives that's relevant to Sonic CD, they actually had the audacity to remove Sonic's voice lines. Are you kidding me? Do you seriously expect to retcon Classic's talking? The only reason why he didn't talk in the Genesis games is because of the goddamn system limitations. If they had the technology, he would have talked. And that's exactly what they did for Sonic CD when it came out. Anytime it was possible for Sonic to talk, it happened. CD, Adventure Onward, even in other media, Classic always talked. Commercials, comics, manga, and not even mentioning the Western media. Classic being a mute in Generations is something I never understood, especially when Classic Tales talked perfectly. Do they seriously want to suck all the essence of charm out of these games? I love the voice lines. They even removed the I'm outta here part. Man, what a letdown. It's like Origins tries its absolute hardest to make me hate it. My reaction to this information was literally when I first played Sonic Origins. I shouted out loud, by myself, did they seriously remove that? What's the goal in this? Even the most try-hard Classic fans think this is stupid.
Gee guys, I hope that entire year of doing literally nothing but adding Game Gear ROMs and removing everything we love wasn't too hard for you.
Jokes aside, they did add in a couple of neat things. Objectively, the biggest positive is the CD intro animation. They not only remastered it, making it look better than it ever has, and I'm serious. The first time I laid eyes on this remaster, my jaw was on the floor and my cheeks were clapping. But they finally got the rights to Sonic Warrior and Cosmic Eternity. Yes! This was just amazing. It almost makes up for the issues of this version. I really wish we had the best of both worlds between 2011 and Origins. On top of the remastered opening, we also get the beginning and ending cutscenes, which are cool. Getting to see Amy actually use her tarot cards, which is a first, is neat. And I really enjoy how I get to see Sonic ride in the tornado, which is directly tied with the events of Sonic 2. The animation is a bit stiff, but other than that, these are great additions. On the gameplay side of things, Knuckles is finally playable in CD, which is cool, but it's not something that should be celebrated. The only reason why he wasn't playable in the first release of the game was pure laziness. He wasn't in 2011, so they could have been bothered to add him in at first. But he's here now, and honestly, it's a real Sea Knuckles on Little Planet. They added in the spring twirling animation, which is super cool, and seeing him in the CD special stages feels wrong. However, Knuckles is completely overshadowed over something that fans have been begging for years. Amy is now playable. Yeah, even as the #1 Sonic Origins hater, this is hard to ignore. Amy always deserved to be playable back in the classics. I was shocked when Mania Plus came out with no sight of her. Originally, I was really worried because I thought they were going to make her play like her Sonic Advance counterpart, which, jumping the gun here, I hate. But no, they did her justice. A little too much justice. She is completely busted. Her hammer Insta Shield type thing destroys the game. You can do so much with her. She even has a drop dash-esque move, which she literally cannot take damage as she rampages with her hammer. If Tails was the easy mode, Amy is the super duper Cocomelon mode. She is fun as hell, but good grief is she overpowered. And just speaking on classic Amy in general, I think Sega's taking this a little too far. Don't get me wrong, I love Amy, again, in my top 5 favorite Sonic characters of all time, but she's not the all-powerful deity that Sega and mostly modern Sonic team wants you to believe. Her bio in Superstar says it all in my opinion. I love all the attention she's getting, but making her an all-powerful being kinda takes away from her character development in later titles, but it's small potatoes. I'm glad she's here like it was always meant to be. Overall, Sonic Origins Plus is a disappointment. I should have expected it, but I like to look at the positive side of things. It gives something a fair chance before I hate on it, which, as I've said, is my mission for this series.
And with that being said, that'll do it for this one. That was a crazy adventure if I say so myself. Sonic CD means so much to me personally, and I really enjoy digging into every aspect. And the best part is, we still have the best game to go. Yeah, you guys know what it is. Next time in NNC Reviews, we'll be reviewing Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles. See you then.